everyone. This is Robert Rutherford. We're at episode 37, and we have Albert Carrillo in here, the CEO of the Western Walls and Ceilings Contractors Association, otherwise known as Wwcca. Albert, thanks for coming in, bud.
Hey, Rob, thanks for the invite. I
appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for taking some time out of your schedule. And coming in to tell your story. So how's everything going?
It's going as good as it can. COVID, it's everywhere, but the guys are busy, so we're busy. We're
Good.
Trying to invent new ways to do stuff. Yeah, busy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. It hasn't, it's really strange how construction has just remained busy through all of this stuff. It really, I mean, we've been having record sales.
I know. We've been having record hours, and these, my hat's off to these contractors. They find a way to be safe, change their rules, do whatever they have to do to keep their guys working. I commend them. Sure.
A lot of the trades in our industry, it's not like these guys are working on top of each other at, even before this. You want to kind of keep them separated anyway so that they're getting production. And it's riding up in the man lifts, getting up to the floors where they need to work, elevators and so forth. That's what makes it probably a lot more difficult for those guys.
Yeah, that's what we've heard is getting back and forth, taking breaks. They have to take them on the floors. They can't sit together. But, one advantage of this whole thing is the trade stacking has diminished. So
sure.
It was a big problem for a lot of years. Everybody's on top of one another, and now they can't be. So these guys, even though they have to limit the amount of manpower there and make these accommodations, they're making up for part of it through the lack of trade stacking, so they can get their job done. There's nobody in their way. So
the way it's supposed to be.
Well, yeah.
For the sequencing.
Exactly.
There has to be a little more planning on the general contractor's side to be able to make that happen, so that you're not getting these guys next to each other, for sure.
As it should be. But unfortunately, and I've heard this time and time again, it doesn't shorten the timeline that they want the build done.
Of course. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Albert, you worked in the field for a number of years. Tell us your story about how you got in and what you were doing.
So, right out of high school, my dad was a teacher. My mom's a nurse. They're both college graduates. And so my path was college. So I wanted to go into service out of high school. And Dad says, no, go to school and get a degree, then go into the service, come out as an officer. I go, okay. So I go to college. I was going to be a lawyer. I figured, hey, that's the best way to make a lot of money.
Sure.
So here I am in college, just I didn't get a degree. I didn't get any money. I paid for it myself. My dad couldn't afford to put me through college. So I'm slugging away in college. And my younger brother got a job during the summers. He started college too, and he started working as a gun hottie in Tucson. And I'm like, what's a gun hottie? He goes, we go out there and we feed a bunch of sand and cement into this pump and pump it on the wall, pumping stucco. I go, what's stucco? I didn't know anything. We didn't have a construction background.
That's amazing.
Like zero. So anyway, he's doing that. He gets my best friend into it, my other best friend, two guys I was hanging out with. And so they're all working construction, and I'm holding the line for my college degree and working full-time, going to school full-time, and just killing myself. I was not happy at all. So finally, after roughly 4.5 years of trying to do the college thing, my buddy goes, I need a guy. He goes, I come and work for me. I'll pay you $7 an hour. And I'm like, I did some quick math. Whoa, that's a raise. So I was basically out of college. I hadn't been going to school. I was ditching a lot. I didn't like the job I was at as managing an auto parts store. I said, sure, I'm in. So there I go. First day on the job, he walks me up. Now I've been working a little side work on the time, doing some floating, doing some cleanup for my buddies, did little side jobs that they had. But this was my first real career in construction. So I roll on this job site. They walk me up to this sand pile and they said, that's a mixer. This is a sand pile. This is your cement and lime. This is a hod. This is a hod stand. This is your wheelbarrow. We're working on the roof today. I thought, okay, cool. Taught me how to mix. Taught me how to load a hod, taught me how to carry a hod, walk up the ladder and dump it onto a mudboard. And that's what began my career, that very thing. And I did that for quite a while, actually. Got real good at it.
The hardest job in plastering.
I didn't know any better.
I mean, that is tough work.
It
man.
was hard work, I tell you. But I was so fit. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Just amazing.
Well, it probably weighed more than you did
Yeah.
when it was full.
I weighed
You
about
know?
130, 140 pounds back
Yeah.
then. I was
No,
I was a
that's tough.
rail.
That is tough.
Yeah.
And your brother was working with you at the time?
So we never did work together. He was working for a separate company, and then I worked for another company with my best friend. And my other best friend was up in Phoenix working. So we're down in Tucson working.
Okay.
And so I get in, I start working, and we get this job up in Lake Powell at Bullhead City.
Mm-hmm.
And they have it's called Wawweep Lodge. It's right there on the Arizona side. And they had an existing building and one hotel, and they wanted to build 2 more hotels and a new restaurant. And so, I'm sorry, they had 3 existing hotels. So we went up there and we redid the existing, stuccoed the new ones, and then did the restaurant. But the 3 existing were done by hand. So we ran that all, me and another hottie.
Mm-hmm.
And we carried the whole re-stucco for those 3 buildings project. On the next 3, we got into pumping. And that's when I started learning how to feed a gun.
Got it. Trying to keep up with the gun.
Yeah, it was hard at first.
Yeah.
But there's some techniques you learn, like
Yep.
and I tell guys, never feed sand from the top of a sand pile. You'll kill yourself. You gotta start at the bottom, feed it up, and let the sand fall to you, and you're going minimize your movements.
Yep.
Over here to the cement, right over here to the lime. They're close together. We used to cut our bags in half of lime, so that half a sack. It's easier to carry. Sometimes I
Sure.
do the cement too.
Yeah.
Depending how fast we were going at the time.
Sure.
But the sand is the key because there's so much of it. By the
Yes.
tons. We're
Yes.
shoveling tons a day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's you show up and it's a full pile, and at the end of the day,
Wait until lunchtime. Then you get your second pile.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, it was
That's-
just brutal.
That is brutal, and a lot of summertime work.
A lot of it.
Even worse. Even worse.
It was in the heat. So the hottie had to show up a half hour early because they wanted mud at the end of the hose when the blasters got there.
Sure.
The elites.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had it done. We just had it done. We were there at dark 30.
Mm-hmm.
And then summertime, it's 4:30 in the morning. We're pumping by 5, just enough sunlight just to see what you're doing.
Sure.
And we're done by 12, 1 o'clock. Get out of the heat.
Sure. Sure.
Do whatever it is you do
Yeah.
afterwards.
That's a whole different style when you're working in the desert.
It's very different. Yeah, we just a lot of little tricks we picked up.
Mm-hmm.
The hose would get hot, so we'd take cement bags and drape it over the hose that's in the sun and keep the cement bags wet.
Mm-hmm.
And so the slight breeze or whatever would help keep the hose cool.
Sure.
Just working in shade. I told them I was burning up out there standing in the sun, so I told them, let me get some scaffolding. I want to build my own little, I called it a hottie shack.
Mm-hmm.
Let me build my own little hottie shack. It won't interfere with anything I do, but I just got to keep that sun off my head. So I got some scaffold and erected it over me
Mm-hmm.
and put in the plank and all that.
Yeah.
And with that cool sand, the wet sand down there, it was just enough to lower the temperature a few degrees just to keep you from baking.
Sure.
Keep the head kind of, the brain working in the heat.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
little things, just little things that we did.
Did you ever graduate to the gun where you were running the
did.
nozzle?
Yeah, so I went from feeding the gun. So then I ended up working on. I traveled a bunch. I went job to job to job. Jobs just rolled quickly. So I want to add. There was no union in Arizona. Back when I got into this, the union had just gotten out of the state. They had no members. There were no unions there, especially in the plasters union. But there was a lot of old timers that were ex-union guys, and so they were still working. And I had the benefit of working under them. I went through an apprenticeship program without being an official sanctioned apprenticeship program, just by working with the old guys.
Sure.
I worked hard. They liked me. I wanted to get on that wall. That was my goal, right? I got to get on the wall. So I'm feeding gun. I tell them, man, I want to get on the wall. I want to get on the wall. And they says, well, you got to find a hottie and train him to replace you. And as soon as you do that, we'll put you on the wall. He goes, but there's one thing. If that guy doesn't make it in the sand pile, you're going back to the sand pile. So train him good and get a good guy. So I did that. Found a guy. Got him going on the gun. And I go to the wall and I start floating. And so I'm floating, you know, just floating and scraping, floating through code, cutting back, doing all kinds of stuff. The guys liked me, so the guys that knew I worked hard, asked me to come and finish on the finish crew with them. So I got to start sand finishing pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And that was a lesson in itself. You know, just you see the mud going through, you see it all wet, and you see it put on the wall till you're actually moving that stuff around. You don't figure out things right away. And so, you know, just killing myself trying to keep up. And again, learning little techniques to shortcut your time, the movements, all that stuff.
Sure.
Keeping your water bucket next to you, you know, not slamming the sponge float so it bends so that you can float a good float, because you want the fewest strokes on the wall that you can.
Sure.
Keeping up with your spread guy, knowing when to trim, you know, just little things. And,
Sure.
And I got to doing that. And I spent probably a good year and a half on a project in Phoenix, Arizona, up in Scottsdale, just floating sand finish, lids, walls, you know, just the whole 9 yards. It was a blast. It was a blast.
Yeah, well, that was good training for you.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to have a job that size and
it was big.
Learn all those tricks.
It was big.
Yeah.
So I went floating hard brown coat to doing that. And then I got to Derby after that, my next job. I started out on a scratch Derby.
Got
Just
it.
a big, you know,
Yeah.
big old scratch Derby, and chasing the gun with that. It was a good lesson in learning how to move that thing and how mud behaved on a 3-foot wide swath that you would take. You know, you got your little trimmer, your little brush, and your Derby. And so I learned that, and then I moved up into Derbying the brown coat.
Got it.
And then one day the nozzle man didn't show up. And so I says, give me that thing. So I nozzled a little bit, but not a whole lot. I just kind of filled in for him, was learning the nozzle, and everybody played with me, you know, kinking the air hose so it stops the air, so you freak out, think you got a pack. There's little games everybody plays.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
for sure.
the rite of passage.
That's all part of it,
Yeah, such good times. And then I went back, so that was all up in Phoenix, where I did a lot of my learning and growing. Most of it in Phoenix. Then I moved back to Tucson. Kind of went in, but there's only 90 miles difference between the two cities. So I'm back in Tucson and getting ready to get married, and I got this job opportunity spraying fireproofing on this tall high-rise in the center of town. And I go, I've never sprayed fireproofing, but the guy who was trying to hire me says, you know, hey, you got a good reputation, you're a hard worker, you show up every day. I guess that's a thing.
Well, it's huge.
A desired thing, I don't know.
It is today.
Yeah, still today.
Yeah.
So I took the job, and it was me and the other guy, and we had a hottie and we had a hose puller, and that's it. That was our entire crew. And so for a year and a half, we spent on this building fireproofing, and that's where I honed my nozzling skills. I loved it. I took to it, and I absolutely loved it. I could just stand there for hours, and he goes, my turn. I go, let me get to the end here.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, okay, cool. So
Yeah.
it was so much fun, you know, and then we had the little depth gauges that we'd have to do.
Yeah.
And so that's where I learned how to nozzle, and I mean, finally tune it. And I was pretty proud of my nozzling.
That's actually a good place to learn, because it's not a critical finish.
No, it's not.
It's a critical depth, you know,
Correct.
that you're kind of guessing at the depth,
You
right?
kind of are. And after a while, you can kind of guess to, you know, once you lay the proper depth, then the rest of it just kind of feathers around to that
Sure.
same depth. And,
Yeah,
and you check yourself once in a while. And, but yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movement, the up and down, you know, and I want to add that being in the trade, it kind of fulfilled my vagabond nature. I like new things. I like being creative. I like advancing. I like doing new stuff. And you know how it is in the trades, man. No 2 days are the same.
Nope. No.
You could be on the same job in the same floor doing the same thing.
Yep.
It's a very different day.
It is.
And I love that. That played right into my psyche. I don't know how to.
Well, that's kind of that's the nice thing about construction, you know, is it is different every day, and you're working with different people all the time, you know, and it's
Some great people.
Yeah, and the other thing is too is it's not just the same thing every day. You know, you could be working the nozzle one day and then you could be floating the next day, and then you could be finishing a couple of days later. You know, spreading the finish on.
Exactly how it went.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that keeps it interesting.
And the new jobs and the new challenges, and that's just as a worker. It was good. That fireproofing job set me in my career. I think it was a set for me. I said, you know what, I can do this. And then I started setting my goals. Okay, now I need to be a foreman and then a superintendent, and I'd eventually like to own my own company. And I did get there, but so after Arizona, it got slow. Had to go. I went up to California, did some piecework lath, worked on some housing stuff up near Vacaville, up in that area.
Northern Cal?
Yeah, Northern Cal. Came back to Arizona, and work was still slow. This is 80s, somewhere around there, mid-80s. And my brother, in the meantime, had moved. So he went to Socorro Tech, Danny, and he graduated. He has a petroleum engineering degree.
Oh, wow.
And ended up as a plaster. He never...
What the hell happened to you guys?
Well,
I mean, you were going to be an attorney,
I
and
know.
chemical engineer, you know.
That's how valuable and how lucrative this trade is. I just want to say.
All right,
It just filled the need in here of doing whatever it is, just the path that we took, you know. And the younger brother, he didn't go to college, but he's in the trade tube.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. So Danny was over there working, and he says, hey, bro, I need a foreman here bad. He goes out here, they set up one section of scaffold and they move it around the house. He goes, I'm setting the whole house and people love it. And he goes, I got too much work. I need help. I need you to run a crew. I run a crew. So I said, okay, I'm there. So I picked up my family. We moved to Albuquerque.
Oh,
and
wow.
we actually lived in Rio Rancho, but I spent 18 years temporarily living there. I loved the state. It was an okay place to be, but I stayed there just because the kids were real young, just starting into school.
Right.
And throughout that, they both graduated high school from New Mexico. So we stayed at least 12 of those years. I told them I wouldn't move them around in schools, but as soon as you graduate, we're out of here.
Got it.
So then I went there and did a lot of work for him. And that's when I started running crews and being a foreman for larger crews. I had done a few small jobs down in Tucson as a foreman. I finally did make that, but over there's where I kind of was helping him run the company for a guy.
Got it. And this was all residential?
Residential and commercial.
Okay.
And a lot of eifs. So I got to back up just a little bit. Back in Arizona, I got introduced to eifs. Everybody calls it eifs. I think you know that's like nails on a chalkboard for me. Eifs is the proper acronym terminology. Anyway, I get into eifs, and that's really cool, lightweight, easy to do. Kind of did that for a while. So when I went over to New Mexico, they were starting this new finish. Stowe had just bought this acrylic. We're doing acrylic finish over stucco. And Stowe was trying to get into this market, and they had this new invention called elastomeric finish. And they knew I knew how to do eifs, floating and spreading the finish. And so my brother says, hey, let's start doing this on our projects. Let's start putting this acrylic finish on these projects. And so it was easy.
Sure.
You brown it, you float it hard, because we always floated our brown coat. We never we always floated it with a hard float. Not a sponge float, not a scrape, not nothing. Always a hard float. So we had a nice level finish for the brown coat. So we started doing acrylic finish. We would prime it and then do the finish. And we found out that the primers that the eifs manufacturers had at the time were very heavy in viscosity. So when you start doing your finish on the light finishes, it would just kind of move around and float. And you'd leave little hollandaise everywhere, little voids. So we figured out that if you use their clear, it's like an acrylic binder that's meant to go inside the mix. There's some acryl type stuff, but it's basically a clear acrylic. We started spraying that because in New Mexico, there's two reasons for it. One is they have a lot of exposed wood on the houses, vigas, wooden headers, wood frame windows. And we'd always have to mask them off like completely,
Sure.
just to spray the primer so we wouldn't get any, overspray on this wood that was finished and stained. Well, we figured out if we use the clear stuff, all we had to do is put a little round thing of tape next to where we're going to spread, and we could spray. Nobody knew because it was
Got it.
clear.
Got it.
So that's how we got into doing the clear stuff. So we always primed our brown coats,
Uh-huh.
and we started applying acrylic finish, and man, it took off. I think to this day, I think that's one of Stowe's best acrylic finish markets over stucco still in New Mexico.
Is that right?
It's just the way things are done.
Huh.
They don't do any more colored stucco. Well, I can't say any more. They do a lot of acrylic finish over stucco.
Is that right?
It was fun being.
It's stuck.
It's stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
in more ways than one.
Yeah, for
that
sure.
was fun. That was fun to do.
Was that all one coat stuff that you guys were doing over there?
Mostly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Big one coat market, just like Arizona was a big one coat market on the residential side.
Sure.
In Arizona, the commercial side typically still uses 3-coat.
Okay.
In New Mexico, and yeah, most of New Mexico, the big commercial will use 1-coat. So we were doing big giant walls, large jobs, projects. If it's not eifs, it'll go 1-coat out there.
Got it.
Just because that's the way it is. I don't know. 3-coat's just not a real big popular coating or cladding out there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so when the energy stuff started happening in the 70s, when 1-coat came into the market, they were part of that because it really took off originally in Phoenix, correct? Or in Arizona?
Started in Florida, and then it
Oh,
came
is
to
that right?
Phoenix. Yeah,
Got it.
Bill. Well, I wrote an article about it one time in Walls and Ceilings magazine, and I interviewed a guy named Bill Nichols, who was like, what was it? What was that product? Master Wall, I believe was his product.
Okay.
He said it started back when he was with another company, and they wanted him to make this parging product to go over CMU block, to stucco it, kind of do up. It was early stages of stucco.
Got it.
And so he came up with this product, cement-based product, acrylic modified, had a lot of water entrainment chemicals in it. And he said that they would just dry stack the block and then spread this stuff over it. It would hold the block in place, and they would just grout it, and they eliminated all the grout joints. So they came up with this thing, and they started doing houses that way in Florida. And this is his story of telling me.
Sure.
And so I think it was American Homes was becoming more popular in Arizona, a home builder. And they had worked with Bill Nichols over there in Florida. They says, hey, can you come over to Arizona and do this? But we don't build with block, we build with wood frame. So we're going to have this lath that we're going to have to do, paper and lath. So Bill goes, yeah, no problem. So I don't know how he came up with the 1-inch 20-gauge wire, chicken wire y'all call it, but it's stucco netting. And the reason they came up with 3/8 at the time was the thickness is because that was the amount of mud it took to cover the wire completely without it showing. So that's how 3/8 came to be. So they made 3/8 ground, 3/8 stucco, and they called it 1-coat because it used to be colored in the base coat, and the finish was colored too. So they would put on the base coat, much like a double back method.
Sure.
Apply all the base coat to 3/8, and then come right back with the colored finish. Do the finish, done, 1-coat. You get it all done in one day. That's how it originally started.
Got it. And so that wasn't over foam yet.
It wasn't over foam yet. It was just over sheathed paper, the 1-inch 20-gauge wire, and then then the energy crunch came in. They started the foam, and they realized they didn't need the sheathing when the foam was in place. Of course, as with anything, they want to try and value engineer everything, and sheathing and foam was a cost when foam by itself over open studs works fairly well. And I say fairly well. When it first started, it was actually 1 pound foam, 1.5 pound density foam, which is pretty rigid.
Yep.
And I don't know what they use today. This much less than a pound.
Sure,
density,
exactly. Hey, it all adds up. You know how many houses we're doing, dude?
It's a game of inches.
Exactly.
I live in a 1-coat stucco home with foam, so it works done properly. I'm not here to say anything bad about any of that process. So that's when the over the foam started, right over open stud, and then so you put your paper first, then the foam, and the foam's dimpled, and it's tongue and groove.
Got it.
and they put the inch 20 gauge wire on there, and then away you go.
Yeah.
3/8 and you're finished.
Yep.
Kind of morphed into the colored stucco. Kind of went away. You know, it's with any integrally colored cementitious stucco product, you're going to have color variations.
Yeah.
That's why I think part of that led to, you know what, let's just paint. And when you look at when you look at a massive housing development, and you've got a warranty for however many years, it's much easier for a maintenance guy to go in there and paint a patch than it is to try and match a colored finish.
It'll never match.
It'll never match.
No.
So I think that's how we got away from that massive use of, or only use of the colored stucco into the stucco and paint.
Mm-hmm.
At least in Arizona it went.
Sure.
And now it's all acrylic finish.
Got it.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it started in Florida.
That's what I was told, yeah.
Because of the
Thorowall, that was the company he was working for.
Got it. Because I know that they wanted to save energy in these desert regions, with the AC and so forth, of, the heat that you guys deal with out in those areas. It makes a big difference.
It does.
It does save energy. You're using more energy to create the foam.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're saving your AC bills.
Yeah, you got that whole embodied energy thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a whole nother topic.
Sure. Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you went to New Mexico and you were working with your brother, how many years were you in the trade before you made that move?
Oh, so that was I was probably 12, 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of relatively new into the trade.
Yeah.
Just long enough to get hooked.
Sure.
To say, I'm going to do this. I like this. Yeah.
You were a journeyman at that point for sure.
I defined myself as a journeyman because I knew how to do everything. Backing up a little, learning from these old timers, and I call them old timers, the seasoned, true journeymen. Mm-hmm. They always told me, don't be known as the derby guy. Don't be known as a float guy. Don't be known as a spread guy. He goes, you're a plaster. Learn it all. And I learned interior. I learned running the molds. I learned gypsum plaster.
Good for you.
Yeah, I learned it all from these guys.
Yeah.
In fact, when we were in New Mexico, we did a lot of gypsum plaster interior up in Santa Fe. Mm-hmm. The homeowners there can afford plastered interiors.
Sure.
And we did a lot of it. And that was my first experiment pumping gypsum plaster for the brown coat. My brother says, if it's wet, we can pump it. Mm-hmm. I said, bro, you can't pump gypsum. He goes, yes, we can. And we did.
Got it.
You just can't turn off that pump very often.
No, that's for sure.
You just got to go.
Yeah.
And I know this. So he was working for a company called Presidio out there. And there was a Presidio plastering down in Tucson. And sometimes when we get slow over there, Danny would send the crews down to Tucson to help a guy named Wayne Sharp do some work down in Tucson. And we were down at Wwcca doing the huge barracks job, and we were pumping gypsum plaster down there.
Got it.
And just going, just room after room after room after room, rotting, and it was just a lot of fun. I didn't know we could pump gypsum plaster, but we did.
You made it work. It was better than hand jiving it.
God, a lot faster too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
We pumped everything. In New Mexico, we pumped everything. Mm-hmm. There would be times where we'd pump a garage, a little 200-yard, because right down the street there was a house, and we just load everything up, loaded still, drag it over to the house, start pumping that house. So you time your masking guys, you send them ahead to mask.
Sure.
It's just all a matter of
planning,
putting your manpower where you need them.
Yeah.
They don't need to have everybody there when you're pumping. There can be guys out masking, and you do your pumping, and they come back and float. So
yeah.
My brother was a nut. He was an absolute nut.
Yeah, Danny, I want to have you on here. So
you should.
He will be. He's
the most creative person I've ever met. I remember one time, not to digress a little bit here, but we were on a job and the mixer. We go. I mean, go. Mm-hmm. New Year's Eve, we have to work a half a day. You can party all night. You can have New Year's Day off, but we're working half a day on New Year's Eve, which always turned into 2-3 o'clock. Anyway, that's just how he was.
Sure.
He get things done. So we blow a mixer engine, and we're thinking, all right, a day off.
Nooner.
So we're nooner, yeah. Right. So it happened kind of towards the end of the day. We finished the job. We see the tow truck come up, pulling up the truck, come and load the pump on there. And we're all like, yeah, no work tomorrow. Well, he hauled it to the next job and dropped it at the next job in front of the sand pile and took the motor off and brought another motor and put it on there. And took that motor to go get rebuilt. So we didn't miss nothing. He towed it. I was like, dang it, bro. Yeah.
Wow.
That's how driven he is to get this done. It's, you know, it all comes from passion. He's a little more driven than I am. But yeah, that was one of our deals.
And did you do any lathing?
Only piecework lath for a little bit in California.
In NorCal?
And I used to do when I'd have my own jobs. I did some work on my own, to pay for Christmas, buy some gifts, do whatever.
Sure. Got it.
I always lathed my own projects. I enjoyed lathing. It was fun.
Got it.
I learned how to tie wire, hang lath and wire tie. And
well, that's kind of like if you're a lather, that's part of your trade.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the plaster. You're not the floater.
You're not a trim guy. You're not a wire guy.
Right. Exactly. You learn all of it.
You learn it all. Absolutely.
You learn all of it. And nowadays, a lot of guys are specialists. They're only good at one thing instead of being very well rounded to be able to make anything look good and do it in a timely fashion.
Yeah. It's sad.
And the other thing is too is you're really not a journeyman until you got 10 years in the trade. 3 years just isn't long enough because there's so many, I'm talking like drywall and lathing and framing and so forth.
All of it.
Same with plastering. There's so many different techniques to it and different products that are used, and it's a moving target. Everybody's trying to come up with the latest and greatest to capture some market share. And it takes a long time to be able to get into a situation and know how to improvise with materials that you have available to you. And it's like 10 years. So in Europe, when they would train these guys, they would live on these jobs.
I've heard that.
And it was 10 years before they would turn them out. And they stayed, their journeyman their foreman was their Sherpa. And
that's cool.
They taught them everything. And they didn't have modern equipment and modern techniques. This was all, pyramid style stuff. And they were true craftsmen. You get a lot of these Europeans that come over into America, and they're a different breed on how they approach stuff. It's old school. It really is. And it's
but it works.
They're true craftsmen, for sure.
It's a pleasure to see. I mean, I still see it out in the field once in a while.
Sure.
You could tell a guy who really likes what he's doing, is really nimble and good with what he's doing, and it's I love the craft, love it.
So a lot of what's happening now is prefabrication is a big deal in the industry now, and a lot of that is due to not having enough manpower to get these jobs done. Because we're lacking these people getting into the trades. And, part of this podcast was to help inspire younger guys that, you can make a really great living doing this. And you're working with your hands, and you get some self-satisfaction by walking away at the end of the day or the end of the project. And it's something that's going to stand there for many, many years. And the prefabrication, modular construction and so forth is great for production and repetition, right? So it's a controlled environment, and
Correct.
you have these guys that set these shops up that know how to install these materials, and they're pushing it more and more and more.
They are. Yeah, we're seeing more of it. In fact, we're, part of my role is helping negotiate contracts, and we've now, with the carpenters, plasters, some of them, we have a separate rate for this type of this work segment. In-house panelization.
Got it.
Because it is what it is, right? And
Sure.
typically you may have a seasoned journeyman overseeing, but this repetition thing you're talking about, it's one guy just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Great. Some people like that. I can't take that away from them.
Sure.
So they work in these panel yards, and it works great. But there's two things. There's 2 points I want to make about panelization. One is the Strip in Las Vegas was built on panelization. It's not a new thing.
No.
By any stretch of the imagination.
No.
We have been doing it forever, right?
Yeah.
We just did it out in the open in shops, and the wind would come by and ruin all your work, and you'd have to respray it all, right?
Sure.
You know, can't
Yeah.
move your yard around because they're going to build something there.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for a while. Also, it provides quicker installation when it's planned for the quicker installation. So you got to have your stuff ready to go. You got to have all your mounting things in place. You have to have the cranes set up to go. And like they would do in Vegas, you'd quit one day on a Friday, you come back on Monday, and there'd be 2 floors clad. I mean, they just go boom, 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 boom.
Sure.
But they were geared up for it. And I think there's maybe a lack of knowledge. It's getting better, or a misperception that if I build something in a shop and I take it out here, it's going to make my job go faster. If the conditions are right, right? If everything's ready to go, because you can't take a panel out there and then pop 1,000 holes in it to put in your vents and your electrical and your stuff, and because it defeats the whole purpose.
Sure.
So it's got to be it's a choreograph. It's a dance on the job site, making panels work. But I agree with you. It's an exciting way to look at things, and there's a lot. I keep referring to Danny, and he has the idea of on these panel shops. When you spray a finish, you have to have your panels sitting up, so you get perpendicular spraying, which helps with the shadowing.
Exactly.
Of the pattern.
Yeah.
When the panel's laying down, you can hold your nozzle perpendicular, but how do you reach way in there? You use a long nozzle. Okay, that's hard on a guy's back.
Sure.
So my brother comes up with the idea to suspend a guy on a catapult, a pulley. He lays in a harness, and he's got the nozzle, and they just float him over this panel, and he sprays the panel. I go, where do you come up with this stuff?
Human 3D, bro.
Yeah, right. He goes, they do it. They do it in all kinds of stuff. He goes, it's just done. He goes, that'd be great for a panel yard. So there's a freebie for somebody.
Got it. Hey, whatever it takes to make it happen.
It's generating thought. It's generating creativity. They're finding ways to make panels better. And the beauty of it is it's in a controlled environment. All the materials can cure properly. They can set properly. You have good temperatures. You're not out in the blazing heat. There's no dust to worry about.
Sure.
Everything's semi-automated in its movement. There's a lot of great examples of panel yards.
Yeah.
Really good.
Well, doing exterior claddings, like you said, is nothing new.
No.
It's been done for 30 plus years.
Yep.
When I was an apprentice, we were building panels. We were doing hotel exteriors.
Yeah.
And the thing that's new is load bearing construction with metal studs, and that's fairly new. And it's I've had a guy on here that ran a couple of jobs that were load bearing, and it's all about adjustability.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So these floors, they figured out some stuff to make it so that it is adjustable, and
It has to be.
It's not forgiving construction, by any means.
No.
And the thing that I was thinking, so you get these guys in this controlled environment, and everything is thought out for them. It's all pre-planned, it's all pre-cut. It's like a Lego set, right? So when you get onto a job and you've been working in this, say you started as an apprentice in this panel operation, and then they say, okay, you're a carpenter journeyman now, and we're going to send you out to this job. You don't know how to improvise.
No.
So
yeah.
That's something to think about.
Well, you have to rely on your lead guy. I mean, but you're right.
Because every job is different in every condition. You have to know how to use your tools and the materials that are available to you to make this stuff look good. And that kind of goes back to, if you got 10 years in the field, you can get into basically any situation and make it look good when it's done. With your basic tools and the materials that you have to make it look right. So that I think that's some people should think about that when they're training their new guys, in a panel operation, to be able to have them well-rounded mechanics, you know, and think about it when they get out into the field, you know, that they need to know how to improvise. That's very, very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you're out there with a crew and it's live,
Sure.
there are a million things coming at you.
Exactly.
And yeah, you got to know how to improvise and move and be. And, you know, I think some of these panel yards, there are people working in there that enjoy that. That's really all they want to do. And, you know, and there's a class of worker that just wants to come in and do the same thing every day and maybe switch it up a little bit, finish one day, spread mud the next day, maybe stick foam the next day, and whatever it is.
Sure.
You know, there's a place for those guys too.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just started following this thing to see the track of when a guy comes into a panel yard and he's never done construction, a guy or a girl. I mean, just a human being, a human being comes in. How long is it before they move up or go out into the field, or do they go out into the field? And if they do, what is their career like there? So there's, with it being relatively new, I don't think there's enough data yet, but it's an interesting look. I'd be interested to know, to see.
Yeah. Well, the future will tell the story for sure.
Absolutely.
On that, because a lot of these big guns now have panel operations. You know, and they've done a good selling job to the owners to where they can fast track these jobs, you know, get these buildings closed up faster. And if they're, you know, exterior skins are pretty easy, you know, and, you know, they're not super cut up, you know, their window patterns are the same and the joints are the same and so on and so forth. But it's good for the owners. It's good for our industry, you know, because it keeps those wet trades working. Yeah. You know, in our industry, you know, and we want that. We do. We want to keep those guys.
We need construction to keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
My son told me something, and I never realized it before. And we were looking at a picture, and it's you know, one of those nighttime cityscape things. You see all the lights and the sunset going down. He goes, Dad, what do you think is unique about this picture? I go, it's beautiful. I don't know. He goes, everything you see there was touched by a human being. It exists because of a human being or human beings. Yes. Everything. Our built environment.
Exactly.
You don't realize the impact the construction
it's massive.
It's huge.
It's the biggest industry on the planet. It really is. Because, you know, you start thinking about all the components that go into a building. They were manufactured somewhere. You know, and, you know, I think technology is awesome. But I also think that human hands need to touch things to make the whole thing rotate in a circle. Right. You know, where when you start getting automation, you know, you're taking the human hands off of that. And as you take that away, yeah, the owners of the companies are making money, less liability and so on and so forth. But there's still people that need to program that equipment and stuff like that, but that's taking some jobs away from people that would normally touch this stuff. Right. So like when you are buying, for instance, blinds at one of these big box stores, and they have all the packages of screws and brackets and so forth. Well, those were human hands that put those in those packages and put the piece of tape on it and so forth. You know, it may have... And it sounds small, but it's a huge deal for our economy, you know, the way that all works. And, you know, another thing about this podcast is, you know, most young guys are the same, you know, bigger, better, faster. They want to move up fast. They don't want to have to pay their dues to move up the ladder. And you cannot get around that. You have to put the time in, unless you are just totally exceptional. And if you are exceptional, you're going to be recognized by these guys that are running these jobs, and you're going to move up very quickly. Absolutely. You know, because you're going to be a moneymaker for these companies, and they need that. Yeah. They're looking for that daily. Yeah. You know, it doesn't stop.
Yeah, it takes commitment, and you got to show up every day ready to go. Yeah. And accept any, you know, just, hey, what's going to be new today? What can I learn today? I'm still learning about plaster and stucco and building science. I mean, to this day. Yeah. I still. Yeah. What a
It's
great career.
it is. It is. You know, you never thought in a million years from being wanting to be an attorney that you would be in the position that you're in today.
I even said, that's why I went to college. I said, I'm not getting into construction. There's no way. So I forgot to tell you, my uncle was a union electrician, and graduation, you know, me and my cousin are the same age. We grew up together really close. And he said, this is down in Tucson. He goes, how'd you like to be in the electrical union, become an electrician? I go, yeah, I'll look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I go and I take the aptitude test and the physical test and everything, and they accepted me. So I go, oh no, I'm going to be in construction. I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do that.
Got it.
So I turned him down. My cousin went in, and I turned him down. So I had a chance to be a union electrician.
Wow.
Ended up a plaster.
And that could be a great career as well.
Oh, absolutely. My cousin did very well.
Yeah.
He was in Vegas for many, many years. And when they built that canopy in the older part of town, that big long tube.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What's
Fremont
Street.
Yeah.
He did all the wiring for that whole thing.
Is that right?
That was the
Wow.
job he was on.
A few miles of wires.
A few miles. And so he's done very well. He lives in Colorado now. But
Got it.
yeah, just
Got it. Okay, so you're doing your plastering career. How in the heck did you get involved in the associations? Because you were, tell us about how you
through my second career.
Yeah.
So
in the same industry.
In the same industry, yeah. I love the industry. Many times I had many opportunities to get out of it, and I could never really pull the trigger to get out of it for various things doing it. I love it too much.
Sure.
So I mentioned I had my own business. I got, as with all brotherhood relationships, me and my brother work well together until we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And, I get frustrated and whatever was going on. I figured, I could do this better myself. And so I went into business for myself in New Mexico doing restuccos.
Yep. All right.
And I did that for 2.5 years. And I learned two very important things. One is I'm a better plasterer than I am a businessman. And being in your own business takes way more time than I was putting, even working full time and doing side jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't work. I had to bankrupt the business.
It's quite an illusion, huh?
Oh man, my hat's off to all these guys, especially the big guys.
Sure.
Anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody in business. My hats are off to them for being able to stay in business. I commend every one of them. It takes a different mindset. At the time, I didn't have it. Just my brain was young, whatever reason I didn't have it. So I'm looking at facing total financial devastation. And this opportunity came up with Drive It. They were looking for a field service manager. And so through a series of people I was associated with, the distributor, they knew that we were spreading acrylic finish. I had experimented with some of Drive It's new elastomeric finish that they were trying to bring in. So they brought it to us in New Mexico and we played around with it. I told them, do this, do that. And I applied for the job. And so I got it.
Mm-hmm.
They hired me.
Wow.
And I got to say, it saved me financially. It just kind of reset my whole life direction.
Well, it was a total different direction.
Way different. I had no idea. But the advantage I had is I knew my trade really, really well. And I knew eifs really, really well. And I knew a lot of, I don't call them shortcuts, time savers, things to do to minimize the movement, to minimize, your energy on a job.
Sure.
And I shared that. So, as part of a field service manager, you go out and you train people how to do eifs. Mm-hmm. And I met some fantastic people. I got to say, I met a whole bunch of really great people in the eifs industry. So I'm working as a field service manager with Drive It, doing installations, helping people with installations, teaching them, showing them my tricks. Mm-hmm. And we were in the West, so the West was the largest producer. This was going way back, 97, 96. Mm-hmm. The eifs debacle, the big Wilmington, North Carolina incident, moisture intrusion was just starting to happen. The hurricanes had hit. They were having started some discovery. that hit the eifs industry, and eifs almost went away. It didn't go away, but it almost went away.
Sure.
And so we were starting to now train for these new drainage systems. Touted as new. You know, Drivit had a drainage system way before that. It was a pressure equalized and drainage system. Some thinker had just developed, I don't know, 10 years before. Morcelli was very, very progressive in developing eifs. Drivit always took their profits and invested a huge amount back into innovation, development, that kind of stuff. So I got to give them credit. So through my years of Drivit, I meet a lot of good guys, but I also meet my competition. And I say competition, the other big names, Stowe, Synergy, Parex, all these other guys. And rather than hold them at arm's length, I embraced all these guys. And I said, guys, we're talking about an industry. Let's work together. We work with the same contractors. Let's do the same things. I got to know these guys, the other field service guys. And technical people, whoever they are. And we kind of developed a relationship. I'm still friends with a lot of them today.
Got it.
So I'm doing all this, and then work gets really, really busy. Vegas is just off the charts busy. The regional sales manager is just burning himself out. He goes, I need help. Because I want to create another position. And I forget what the position was. Technical advisor or something like that. Where you help with sales and you still do technical. And so I got that position. Me and a couple of other guys in the building. So now I'm kind of a hybrid, doing some sales, working with architects, still doing technical, and did that for 3-4 years, and then became a regional sales manager. The regional sales manager retired, and I became regional sales manager of the West. So with the exception of Oregon and Washington, the states. I didn't cover that area. But Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, New Mexico, California, Colorado, West Texas.
You took a whole different career change.
Completely different.
Amazing.
And it, again, this new vision, the new things that were happening just filled me. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm learning things,
And you understood the basics of it, though.
I did
already.
I knew how things went together. I knew the what, I knew the how. I was learning the why, and that's what really intrigued me is the why. I remember every time I would go to Drivit headquarters in Rhode Island. My first trip was up through the engineering lab. I wouldn't even walk in the front door. I'd go through the engineering guys first. What's new? What are you guys doing? What does this mean? What does that mean? What's all this stuff? I was fascinated by the why of things. I learned about the testing and about how these products go together. What does it mean when something cures versus when it dries? Why 40 degrees? All that stuff. I learned that.
Yeah.
And I loved it because those are all things that you put them in your kit.
Absolutely.
When you're out in the field, you go, I got the answer to that right here.
Exactly.
I learned that. And you put it back in your kit.
You never want to say, hey, I'll have to get back to you on that.
Rarely.
Right.
Sometimes I did.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But the more you have in your toolbox, the better. And especially understanding it so you can explain
Absolutely. And then we go to the plants. And so I watched how it was manufactured. And I saw the quality control that went into it. And I learned how the colors mix and how you add certain things to make something do something here and there. And when you have a problem, this is what it probably means. So it was it's just, again, filling me with new stuff, new horizons. And I was traveling a lot. A lot. So as part of my regional sales manager duties, I became a full-fledged regional sales manager, and there were technical people working under me now, field service managers. I heard about the Wwcca, this association, and more importantly, I found out that the big players would go to these meetings. They had membership meetings. I go, that's where I got to be. I have to go talk to these guys. I got to go meet the names of the companies.
Sure.
So I started showing up to meetings, and then they were asking for people to talk about products, but not sell products, but talk about how they perform and what they do. And I go, I'm your guy. Let me talk about eifs. Let me talk about drainage. Let me talk about these new finishes. Let me talk about this other stuff. And so I started doing presentations at these membership meetings. And I remember one time, me and a fellow, one of the architectural reps, were in Phoenix. I'm still living in Albuquerque at this time. We were in Phoenix on a Saturday doing an AIA show. And I'm not in the best mood because it's Saturday and I'm in Phoenix. My family's in Albuquerque and I'm normally home on weekends, right?
Sure.
Those are my times
Yeah.
to be home.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing this show. And I get a call from the manager from Las Vegas, Bob Campbell. And I got to know Bob pretty good. He goes, Albert, what are you doing? I says, man, I'm working a show right now. And he goes, can you get away for maybe half hour? I go, why? He goes, well, we're interviewing for a position, for a manager's position with the Wwcca because we're going to open an Arizona office. And he goes, I had one guy show up. He goes, I need somebody else to come interview. Bob, I'm not looking for a job. I'm good with driving, man. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm asking you as a favor, please. All right, Bob, I'll do it. I'll go over there and interview. Got a bunch of contractors in the room. The CEO, Ian Hendry, Mark Fowler was there, Bob. I interview. First words out of my mouth. I want to let you guys know right now, I'm doing Bob a failure. I'm not a favor. I'm not looking for a job. I just want to be right up front with that. I've always hit people with the truth first, even when it's hard, because it's easier to deal with stuff when you hit them with the truth first in its entirety.
Yeah.
So I figure I'm going to start off with that. Here's the truth. Now let's see where this thing goes. And we talk and we jibber jabber and I give them my brief history, blah, 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 blah. I leave. I'm not even out of the parking lot. I get a phone call from Bob. Albert, they really liked you. Bob, I'm not looking for a job. He goes, why don't you just look at the package? We're going to make you an offer. Will you do that? Sure. And that's how I got in.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
man.
they made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
Wow.
And some little backstory to that is I had been traveling for 12 years and I'm a very dedicated person and I will travel when I need to travel. And there was a lot going on. Vegas was just off the charts busy. Southern California is, I call it a black hole because you go there and you just can't leave. There's so much to do.
Exactly.
Texas was very much like that.
Yep.
We just had it going on. They were great years. And so I was doing a lot of traveling, catching all the trade shows, working with industry professionals, just going like a madman. And it was wearing on my family life.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
I could sense it. And my wife, God bless her, tolerated it.
Yeah.
And she just kind of hung in and hung in and hung in and hung in. And I just, I looked at this opportunity. They said, you got to move to Phoenix. So I go, all right, I'm out of New Mexico. There's a path out of New Mexico.
Sure.
I'm back in Arizona, which is my home state. That's where I'm from. And so I just talked it over with my wife and through some heavy lobbying for her to follow me,
Yeah.
I convinced her to move to Arizona and I took the job.
Got it.
Starting out as a manager in Arizona for the Wwcca.
And that had turned union. So there were some guns over there that like Pete King and so forth.
Yeah, Pete King is union only with the painters union for their painting. All the other stuff they're not. E&K, MKB, local home guy.
Yeah, A-Rock.
A-Rock not.
They were at one point.
They were
right?
at one point, but
Yeah.
there's a long story to that.
Yeah, because they were
care
here.
not to go into.
Yeah, and, okay, that's fine. Because
Respect those guys a lot, though. Good company.
they came into SoCal, back in the 80s, and they were poaching a lot of good talent, on that. And I don't know what happened with it. I was working and stuff.
They went up to Northern California and then back to Arizona. Yeah, and Pete King was one of the big ones. E&K was there. Let's see, PCI.
Yeah.
There in Arizona. And so the Carpenters had rejuvenated and moved into Arizona. So they created what was called the Southwest region. Mike McCarron was running the Southwest region. They put a bunch of states together, combined some training funds and other stuff, and they made a presence in Arizona during the George Bush days.
Got it.
And they opened up this beautiful training facility there, just one of the Carpenter buildings.
They are state of the art.
They are state of the art. I give it to them. They're progressive.
For sure.
They are.
For sure.
So that's how the association. So then the contractors got together, and they were always fractured, and I don't want to say fractured, in their own silos of doing business.
Sure.
Right. But in a large non-union market, they're being attacked. It's a race to the bottom, and I'll talk a little bit about some of that, but it's a race to the bottom in this right to work state. And so they said, we need to all get together. Let's get this association over here. And that's how we ended up interviewing, and then I came on board.
Got it.
And the first thing to do is get these guys together and let's start talking. So first thing I had to do is learn, well, what is an association and how does it work?
Sure.
I didn't have a clue.
Got it.
I knew it to the extent that we had the meetings.
Yeah.
I knew it to the extent that they deal with a bunch of people, but I didn't understand the inner workings of it. And so I kind of, I'm just curious by nature. And if I don't know something, I'm picking up a phone calling. And I called, Ian Hendry, I bugged him relentlessly. Sometimes I'd have to ask him 2 or 3 times. I know I asked you this once, and I know I forgot the answer, but man, can you tell me again, what is this? What does that mean? And Mark Fowler helped me out a lot, talk with Bob a lot. And then I got to know the union guys and the big guy, the guys who were running the unions.
Sure.
And so we just developed a great working relationship. I mean, one thing I learned through all of this. Everybody wants the same thing. We all have the same goal. We just have different avenues that get us to that goal.
Sure.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's a very simple thing to understand. And once you know what this guy is trying to do and you realize you're trying to do the same thing, but you have 2 different ways of doing it, you say, okay, well, how can we work together? So that's kind of where we do it, how we function as an association.
Got it. Got it.
We're interpreters.
Right. And it was kind of like when you were working for Drive It and you had all your competitors, right? And you're saying you reached out to these guys, and my opinion in eifs was nothing was standardized.
Yeah.
So this guy had his magic stuff over here, and this guy said, no, you don't do that. And, it didn't get standardized. And that's one of the reasons, in my opinion, I think it went sideways, because you do this on this guy's stuff and you do this on this guy's stuff. And so the association is kind of the same thing, where you want to standardize these ideas where everybody's on the same page. Is that correct?
Yeah, but still allow them the latitude of doing it their way.
Sure.
Again, we're goal oriented. Reach the goal. What is the goal?
Yeah.
I mean, you could ask anybody working for the association. Our goal is to grow the union marketplace, to get more work for our members.
Sure.
That's our number one goal. Anything that comes up as an idea, as an initiative, anything, we take it back to that core value or the core question.
Sure.
How are we going to get more work it's got to make sense to get more work for people
Yeah.
without strong arming or doing silly things, no short-term gains, applying pressure so you get a job, but then the guy hates you forever. That gets you nothing.
Exactly.
It gets you nowhere. And
Exactly.
I want to go back to the eifs days. I remember when I talked to architects, when you're giving presentations, you can't say, drive it this, drive it that, drive it do, drive it by, drive it. You can't. When you're giving a presentation, you're talking eifs. Right?
Sure.
And I always told them, I'm your drive it rep. I'm wearing a penguin. But if you have a question about any product, anything, call me. If I'll get a hold of the rep. We'll find a way to make this work for you, Mr. Architect. We're here to solve your problems. The sales will come. Sometimes it'll be drive it. Sometimes it won't. But at the end of the day, we want the project to be right. We want you guys using eifs.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So that's the mindset I kind of have carried with me. Just, again, goal-oriented, reach the goal. That's some kumbaya stuff, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Well, it seems like every turn that you took, you landed on your feet. And,
I've been fortunate.
a lot of that comes down to being a hard worker. And you were recognized very early by, guys taking you in under their wing. And, there's nothing that will take that away from anybody. Hard workers are always recognized.
Always.
You know what I mean?
Without exception.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even some with colorful personalities.
Absolutely.
They may be hard workers. They're still up there.
Exactly. They are.
Absolutely.
And you had a lot of different opportunities thrown in front of you, and you were never looking for the easy way out.
No.
It doesn't sound like, in my opinion.
In my mind sometimes. When you're out there at 105, God, there's gotta
Well,
be
of
an
course.
easier way.
Of course.
My answer to that is through the top. Keep climbing.
Exactly.
It'll get easier at the top
Exactly.
until it isn't.
Right.
But that's okay, because there's another top. There's another one.
You won't hit it.
I won't hit it.
There's always another, like you said, there's a hill behind that one.
Right behind it, yeah.
You may not see it right now, but there is.
But hard work, and I'm competitive by nature, and our family is. I mean, my siblings, we're all competitive.
Sure.
Just the way we are. It is what it is.
Got it.
Not detrimentally so, but kind of that silent competition.
So you got in with Wwcca in Phoenix, and then now you're the jefe
I'm the head.
of the whole.
Yeah.
Everybody's answering to you.
Well, I'm the responsible party. I'm the guy. I'm the guy at the bottom that when everything rolls downhill, I get it. So yeah, but yeah, CEO is the title. It just came with it.
Right.
So the way I got that, Ian always said, if Arizona gets slow and the income cannot maintain the office and maintain the structure, we're going to close the office. He told me that the first day I hired. Well, it hit that, 2008. So I started in 2008. I know,
Perfect.
right?
Yeah.
Again, by the grace of our divine creator, I have been fortunate. So I started at the beginning of a terrible economic fiasco, and was able to keep it viable through a series of grants and some other income stuff and some hours, all the way up until about 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. And then we had to close the office, and I worked out of my house for about a year. And then through a series some restructuring here in California, some openings were created. A position was vacated. 2 positions were vacated. One was a technical position, and the other was the executive vice president position. And the executive vice president at that time was hired to replace Ian in his retirement. So now the position is vacated. There's nobody to replace Ian. And so Ian says, I got a job for you in California. You can come over here and work. You can help me. I says, can I apply for the position to replace you? If I can do that, I will come to California. Otherwise, I'll find something to do in Arizona. I really don't want to move to California. I love the state, but really don't want to pick up my family and move again. And so he says, let me check with the board. The board said, yeah, you can do it. And so I started working. That's where I learned. That's where I was introduced to the general presidents of these unions and started working in negotiations with Ian and starting sitting on trust committees, just kind of following Ian. And then eventually Ian just said, go ahead and try this on your own, try that on your own, try this on your own. And my competitive nature, I'm not going to let him down. I'm not going to let the association down. I'm not going to look like a fool in front of all the contractors. So I gave it everything I had. I poured everything I had into it. And then they said, okay. So they set a date for Ian to retire. He's right now an advisor for the association because, when I say, where's the skeleton buried, or what was this language? What was the reason for this language? And he opens up his little book, which is his brain. He goes, well, we did it because of this. We did it because of that. So he's just a wealth of knowledge for me.
Sure.
It works out really well.
You got Wikipedia there.
I'm telling you, man, I'm probably one of the luckiest guys that I know of. I just count my blessings every day. I'm fortunate to be in this position. So I take over officially as a CEO and get to know these general presidents, and I still have the same model. I respect you, you respect me. How are we going to reach this goal together? And then, then I take that and I take it over to our members, our contractor members. And I says, what is your goal? How are we going to reach this goal together? I go, did you know that the union says the same thing? And I tell the union, do you know my contractors have the same opinion? Well, that's not how they behave. I go, well, let's get together. So we sit. Got it. We talk. We just open up conversation.
Sure.
We do a lot of committees. So then now we have this association going. We're creating great relationships between labor and management. I think they're better than they have been in the recent past. I don't know about long time ago, but it's functioning. It's functioning as a open dialogue. Not everything, both sides don't always agree, but like anything else, that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to agree to get along.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we have that going. It's improving. We're developing initiatives. And then we have this other facet of the association, and that's the affiliate membership. These are the distributors. These are manufacturers. These are the ancillary, the supportive group of the construction industry. architects, you know, everybody else that's
Sure.
not a contractor, everybody else. And they are members, just like I was, and I'm sure, to have access to these contractors.
Exactly.
Be able to tell them what they do. A lot of times it's hard to get into their office, but if you go to a neutral ground, you get an opportunity to talk to them.
At least meet them.
At least meet them. At least know who they are. Listen to them talk.
Sure.
You know, you can pick up a lot through osmosis and just being there, you know, just being exposed to that stuff.
Sure.
And so we have these meetings, and notice that the attendance is just starting to go down a little bit. First, it was the attendance of the contractors. And I think what was happening is these contractors would be there and other contractors would be there, and they'd start pilfering. Hey, you want to come work for me? Well, why don't you come work for me? Which happens, right?
Sure.
So I started making announcements.
Yeah.
Don't be stealing anybody.
Yeah.
This is Switzerland. This is common ground. Nobody takes anybody from anybody during these meetings. After the meeting, I have no control. Before the
Sure.
meeting, I have no control.
Yeah.
While you're
yeah.
in this meeting, we're not going to do that.
Sure.
Again, give them the hard truth. I say it respectfully, but it's a truth. And really, there's no room for it in our association.
Got it.
And it's to a minor degree. I'll just say that. And so when you have the members, the contractor members starting to decline in membership, then you have the affiliates. Well, why am I going there? And then that coupled with this new group of professionals, you know, the millennial and beyond, they have a very different values. And so I learned through a series of conversations, through observations, through attempts, that we couldn't keep going the same way we were going. We couldn't keep the model of the association going the way it was. We have to do something different. We have to be relative, you know, relate to what's going on in today's environment, today's construction environment.
Right.
And so we're on this process of changing a lot of stuff, holding meetings differently. Of course, we haven't had any this year because of COVID.
Right.
But before that, we started a social media campaign. And one thing I know about these labor groups is they're very good at what they do. Training, recruiting, getting their guys ready to go, you know, teaching them how to be ladies and gentlemen on projects. You know, don't be an embarrassment. Get back to your environment, to your local people, to the economy. But they really weren't good at promoting themselves. You know, there's a stigma attached with union. It's wrong, but it is, right?
Sure.
And so they weren't real good at really showing general John Q. public, builders, developers, anybody, what unions do initially. And so I says, well, why don't we do that? We're an association. We're like neutral ground. Let's start interviewing people. Let's start publishing stuff that shows all the good stuff that construction is. What is it? Let's define it. Let's talk about what it is. Let's go and highlight the pioneers of our industry. Most of them have sat in this chair. Again, I'm humbled to sit here.
A lot
You've
of
had
them.
some greats in this
Yeah.
chair.
Yeah. I have more to come.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
The pioneers, the thinkers, the movers that they created this environment we're in. And I think I take it as our responsibility to take that and keep it going and turn it into something. And so now we're very heavy on showing the public, showing the young people, and not necessarily young people, but even older people who may not have thought of construction as a career, showing them that it is a career. There's a life to it. And you know,
It's a
you look at
culture.
myself.
Yeah.
I started with a HOD, and so here I sit as a CEO, and I like, how did I get here? Doors open. Okay, I'll go that way.
Yeah. Well, you had opportunities that crossed your path and certain situations that ended up happening, but there was a door open for you. And, you know, part of you have to, sometimes that door is only open a crack, and you only have that little crack to get through. And if once it's closed in a lot of cases, you know, and if you don't jump on that, you have to be ready for it as well.
Well, you can't be afraid to say yes. You know, there's that old adage, say yes and then figure it out.
Yeah.
And I just did that only because I wanted to move up. I said yes. If I felt reasonably confident that I could do something, I'll figure out the onesie-twosie things later. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, you can't be afraid to open the door, to look into the crack, to open it a little further, and then to step through it.
Exactly.
It may not be the best thing in the world.
You're going to learn something
You're
from
going
it,
to learn
though.
something from it.
Yeah. So your attitude throughout your life was moving up.
Yes.
You already had that.
Yeah.
You weren't going to be stuck doing this.
I wasn't going to
certain
be a
thing.
plasterer my whole life. I
Right.
wasn't going to chase the nozzle my whole life.
Right.
No.
Right.
No.
You were progressive, and you wanted to move up, and you always had that attitude that I'm going to move up this ladder, you know. And who would have thought you would have been in sales?
I know, right?
I mean, that's a trip, dude.
But I didn't look at it as sales. I thought of it as education.
Yeah.
If you show somebody the why of something, they'll say, "Okay, I'll take that. All right, cool.
Yeah.
You need help with it afterwards?" Yeah, it wasn't really about sales. I was more interested in the functionality, the why, the how does this thing work? How does it fit you? How do I solve your problem? That's
Right.
really what I like to do.
Yeah, but
Self-serving.
you were a sales manager, so
Yeah.
you were in sales.
I was in
you know?
sales.
And
No getting around
you
it.
may not have looked at it that way because you wanted to solve problems for your customers, and that you were selling yourself is what was ended up happening.
And I was again fortunate just to have personality that I do. Is when I moved up into a manager's position or a foreman or a superintendent or a manager, I took it upon myself to study what I needed to do to learn the position, right? I didn't just step in and say, "Oh, I got all the power now. You do this, you do that, you do this." I never was that way because I never liked that done to me.
Sure.
I wanted to be, I've always told everybody, I'll never ask you to do anything I won't do myself. I will absolutely do it myself first.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're doing now is trying to create these little micro training seminars for like if you're a salesman, you've been a real good sales guy, and the sales manager moves on or does something. They said, you're going to be the new sales manager. Okay, what do I do? How do I do this? I need some tools, something. Some people just don't naturally get it or don't naturally seek their own. They try to, tough it through, and sometimes they fail. Sometimes they end up going somewhere. So you may have lost good talent. And when let's say you're just selling stucco products. When you're in that business, you need those products out the door, going. Some people take the time to train their people to how to be a salesperson, how to work with other people, how to manage people, but sometimes they don't. And so we've started this little training thing that we're doing, teaching how do you be a manager? First-time manager, how do you do it? What does it mean? What are you looking for? And that's so I'm trying to bring value to these members, find places to get something they may not have. And I'm not talking day-long seminars. We're doing one right now called Drive-By MBA. And it is a short 15-minute, and we're talking with feelings right now because of the COVID thing. There's a lot of post-traumatic feelings going on right now. Everybody's angry. Everybody's fed up. Everybody's just like, when will this end? And I can't say everybody. A lot of people.
Sure.
So we came up with this idea working with this company called MAP, the management company, that are teaching people how to deal with emotions. And we picked 3: anger, frustration, and it's quick. 3 points, 1 takeaway. And then you can stay afterwards for a Q&A, open Q&A, and or not.
Got it.
And so we've done one. We've got a series of 6 coming up. And the first one was like 35 people that came on it. Yeah, it was really good. So check our website.
So you're thinking out of the box.
A little bit, trying to.
But shit's changed though too.
It has.
This whole thing has changed.
We have to be different.
Yeah.
We have to think differently. And again, it's not that I'm trying to create. I've always said I don't have a box. I never had a box. So for me, thinking outside the box, I never had one to begin with. It's just the way I think. And it's not just me. I get information from a lot of people, and I get a lot of feedback from a lot of people. So what do you think of this idea? What about that? How can we collaborate here? And so that's I do a lot of working with other people because I am not the answer to a lot of this stuff. But I find good things, and I know good nuggets when I get them.
Sure.
And I'll keep them.
Yeah.
I'll need that later. I don't know when, but I got it. So
but you're putting it out there.
Putting it out
and
there.
that's how you're getting those nuggets.
Right now, I don't think you could fail doing different stuff because everything's different.
It is.
Everything's different.
And it's going to continue to be that way for a little while.
I think so.
Who knows what's going to end up happening with this? You got to, being open-minded and progressive always helps you climb that ladder. So it doesn't stop. You can't turn that off. And it sounds like you've had that your whole life.
Yeah.
To where
I've been lucky to have it. And it keeps your enthusiasm high.
For sure.
It's so easy to get in a rut.
Yeah.
Especially, doing monotonous things. But if, you can learn a craft, and things can be taken away from you, but something people can't take away from you is your brain and your thoughts and your knowledge. You have that forever, and it's yours.
Sacred ground.
Sacred ground. Nobody can touch it.
That's right. That's right.
So fill it with all you can. And another thing we're trying to do is, like I mentioned before, is reach out to the younger people, reach out to those considering construction as a career, make a change. I mean, I was in college and I just took a hard right.
And they weren't even shoving that shit in your face. I mean, you came from it from your family
just from my brother. Yeah. Mom and dad go to college. Yes.
Correct. Yeah. That's what you're going to do, dude.
You're going to college,
right.
Kid.
But that was before they were shoving that down everybody's throat from kindergarten on, that you're going to be a frickin' loser if you don't have a degree.
I know.
And
it's sad.
Yeah. It went sideways. It was a bad experiment.
It's sad.
Because here we are, we got a labor shortage, and we've had a labor shortage since 2010. Okay. When shit crashed, a lot of it didn't, a lot of these guys didn't make it back, or they were ready to retire, or they figured, I have to get into a different career. So now I've got to learn something else. If they were
maybe a little impatience on their part, because one thing I know, construction, if you are of the mind to stay employed, you will stay employed in construction. There's always something to do somewhere.
For sure, but you have to be a good hand in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
Like if you're a good hand, you'll always work. They may not be building new stuff, but there's so much old stuff that needs to be maintained. It's like washing windows on a high-rise building, or painting the Golden Gate Bridge. By the time you get to the end, you got to start over.
That thing, that's in perpetuity, repainting that thing. It's forever.
Yes. Yeah. For real.
Yeah, and the one little market segment, handyman business. You can't get a handyman right now.
No.
They're months out.
It's amazing.
I'll get to you next week. You can't do it.
Yeah. So, exactly.
I learned how just through osmosis, through watching on job sites. I learned how to do most everything I know how to do by watching, and then of course doing.
Exactly.
I put an addition on my house. I can't do electrical. I can, but I don't like it. I don't do plumbing because I just don't do plumbing. Right. And the ductwork, I'm not good at that. But everything else, I got it.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of it. I mean, a lot of that same stuff that you just mentioned, it's better to hire a professional, to do
Agreed.
it. So, but there's a lot of other parts and pieces that go into doing just a room addition compared to plumbing and electrical and AC. So,
in the sense of security, knowing, so I always knew it, drive it. I was never afraid to make a mistake because I always knew if it went south and they fired me, I'll go right back to plastering. I'll be employed 10 minutes later.
Exactly.
I've always had that mentality that I can always go back and do that.
Exactly.
Anytime.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of comfort. That creates, some confidence.
Absolutely.
In your ability to step just a little bit beyond your comfort level, knowing that I got all this behind me.
Sure. Yeah. And again, sacred ground. No one can take it away.
Nope.
It's there, and that's part of the beauty of being a tradesman as well. It gives you that confidence that you can. You take chances when you're young. You don't, usually older folks don't start taking chances. Your time is limited.
It is. Yeah, I'm getting there. I have a shorter time left to my retirement than I ever have.
And it'll be shorter tomorrow.
Oh, I know.
Right?
And I hope it keeps getting shorter till I get there.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt that that's going to end up happening. But it sounds like you still have a ways to go in your career.
I do.
Like you enjoy it. You still enjoy it.
Still enjoying it.
Yeah.
I still want to be relevant. The one thing I don't want to do is be that old guy that's just hanging around, writing on his name, not really contributing. And not that I hold that against anybody. For me personally, if I can't be on the forefront, creating, moving, doing new things, it's time to leave it to somebody who can.
Got it.
Give somebody the opportunity, to come up and, I'll
Pull out some of them frickin' nuggets.
yeah. Well, that's what you do. That's
And
what
you
Ian
pat-
did
you-
for me. He
you-
says he did a little brain dump. Sorry, I hit the mic. Let me give you some of this. Give me that whenever you need it. Just come get it.
Sure.
It's always here for you.
Sure,
It's,
sure.
it's a great
That's
thing.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. So what are your hobbies?
Well,
Besides
golf.
working your ass off. Well, yeah, golf,
love
that's a
golf,
no-brainer.
yeah. I work with wood. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy doing woodworking, and my tagline there is, I do that to keep me from killing people. It's just, traffic and everything. Just
Yeah.
watching the madness that is this world right now.
Yeah.
It's very task oriented. It takes thought,
Mm-hmm.
and I do things that I've never done before. Like mortise and tenon, but I'll cut them by hand. That kind of stuff.
Got it.
Making jigs,
Mm-hmm.
working with wood. I took shop back in high school.
Yeah,
So
when
wood
they had
shop-
it. They
when
had
they had
it.
it.
then. Yeah.
Auto shop, wood shop, photography, machine shop. Took them all. It was
Yeah.
great.
Well, you had to.
Well, you had to.
You didn't have a choice. And you know what? They took those away.
I know.
And I think that
What a
hurts
mistake.
it hurts society, dude.
Agreed. Agreed.
That was not everybody's going to be a doctor or an attorney or a chemical engineer or an engineer, mechanical engineer, whatever. I mean, those were.
Not everybody can. There's not enough positions open for everybody to do that.
A lot of that shit is saturated.
Yeah.
The programming and all that stuff is saturated. You have to be exceptional, to be able to make it through that. So these trades are super important
I
for
agree.
these young guys.
Yeah, so woodworking, I still, what else do I do? That's about it.
Got
Take
it?
care of the
No
grandkids.
skydiving or anything?
No,
Skiing?
So back in high school, not anymore.
Got it.
Not anymore. But back in high school, I was a pole vaulter. And
Wow.
that was a kick in the pants.
For
I
sure.
loved it. So I did real well. Did okay. It was a lot of fun. Did
Yeah.
pole vaulting through high school. And then my first year in college, I was pole vaulting and pulled a hamstring and just got tired of going to practice. I got distracted. I was frustrated being in college. I was just frustrated. So I quit pole vaulting. So then we moved into Mexico, and I'm in my 30s. And there was an ad taken out at the local high school saying, hey, there's a intramural track club starting up for adults, young adults. And I call the guy, I go, do you have pole vaulting? He goes, yeah. I go, sign me up. I'm in. So I tell him, get off the phone. Honey, you're not going to believe what I'm going to do. What? I go, intramural track, they got pole vaulting. I'm going to pole vault. She goes, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, babe, it's good, man. I'm good at it. She goes, no, you're not. You get hurt. We have no income. Because my wife was a domestic goddess. She's
Good.
She
She raised your kids.
She did.
Good for you.
I know.
You're
I
very
would
fortunate.
never, again, lucky, just fortunate.
Well,
But she said no pole vaulting, zero, none, zero.
well, that was the end of that.
That was the end
career.
of that. So that, and then same with skydiving. You're not going to skydive. Same with bungee jumping. No. There'll be no bungee jumping for you.
No motocross or anything like that.
Yeah, and I got to say, it's not that she said no. We talked it out.
Sure.
She convinced me how stupid I was. That's what happened. She
Well-
showed me the error of my ways.
Well, it was something you enjoyed, though. It's
I was afraid of nothing.
that's how high did you get?
14 feet.
That's big, man.
Yeah, it was all right.
That's big. You get up on the second stage.
Yeah. Well, so I used to walk stilts all the time.
Did you?
Oh yeah, with a nozzle.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just I was fearless.
Wow.
Jumping off scaffold. My knees pay for it now, but
Sure.
it was crazy. I shudder at some of the things I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
The-
don't care to mention them because
Yeah.
but yeah,
I
I
get
made it
you.
through.
I get you.
I was afraid of nothing.
You've had a hell of a career, man.
Yeah.
You're not done yet.
I'm not done yet.
You
Yeah,
still,
so
you still
we're
have
passing
passion.
on. Yeah, still have passion. This technical side. So I want to mention that in our association we have a technical side, Technical Services Information Bureau. Again, been around a long time. Walt Pruder was part of it. Dick Gorman, icons in the industry.
Sure.
Training, passing along, and now we've got Darren Coates running it. He's been with the association 16, 17 years. Working
Damn.
technical the whole time.
Is
He comes
that
from the
right?
ceiling, the acoustical ceiling industry
Wow.
from the field, but now he's running our technical side. And so I look at us as two pillars because as CEO, I can't do both. I can't do technical, be effective, and do the labor relations stuff.
Sure.
So it's Darren's deal to run, and he's in there fighting the fight with the ASTM, with the, you know, all the acronyms. He deals with all the acronyms: ASTM, Cisco, Cal OSHA, all these people that he's working with. The Drywall Finishing Council, you know, been instrumental in doing a lot of things, but you never see his name. The guy's he's crafty good. He just keeps his name out of everything. He contributes big time. Does very big things in the industry.
No, it's a great organization over there, and I'm glad that I'm accepted as an affiliate over there.
Dude,
and
yeah, you're welcome anytime. You know that.
Yeah, and you guys have always made me feel welcome.
Yeah,
you know, there's some great guys over there, and the association, the members are all great people.
Great people.
You know,
We have a good group.
You can learn a lot, and the thing is it's a trip because it is evolving, you know. So this new blood is coming in.
New blood's coming in.
You know, we're the old guys now, dude.
I know. When did that happen?
Well, I mean, it happened, you know, and they will be if they're lucky enough to get there, you know, because you got to kind of be lucky.
You do
to grow older.
Correct.
You know?
Correct. But you know, a lot of what you do in advancement, calling it lucky, is you create your own luck.
That's true.
You know, so
that's very true.
Yeah, I made a vow to never quit learning. When it's time, you know, when I get tired of learning, it's time. It's just time to retire and do something, or learn something different.
Break out the 9-iron.
Yeah, man. I hope I can golf as long as Dick Martin. He's in his 80s, still golfing, and I just hope.
Just stay active, man. You're in good shape.
So far.
Yeah, you're in good shape. No boiler on you. You know, so you're obviously you're eating right, and you're staying active. And that's the key to self-preservation.
It is, yeah. It calms my mind.
Sure.
I have a very busy mind.
Sure. That's you had a hell of a story, dude. A
Really?
lot of different shit.
It just
a lot
is.
of different stuff going on there, you know, and the way you moved up in your career, so forth. Very interesting.
It's been a great ride.
Yeah. And again, you know, you're still passionate about it, and you've got a ways to go, so that's good. And hopefully you can find somebody in the future that will fill those shoes.
Yeah.
You know,
they're there.
Yeah, for sure.
They just don't know it.
That's a process,
right?
Too. Yeah, it is. It really is.
Yeah, that's why, you know, our outreach is so important. Just letting everybody know what this association does. I mean, it has a great reputation, a great name. Been around 100 years.
For sure.
There was a great foundation that I was able to stand on to continue working.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it's a very, very interesting story.
It's cool.
And I really appreciate you taking some time to come in and tell your story, man.
Man, thanks for inviting me.
That's
awesome. You know, this is hallowed ground right here.
Yeah,
some
well,
greats have been through here.
I've had some very interesting characters coming through here.
Yeah,
and
no doubt.
I've got more too coming in. So, and the industry needs to hear these stories.
Agreed.
You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of us out there. A lot of interesting people, a lot of interesting stories.
For sure.
I enjoy watching your podcast. So.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, and thanks again for coming in, Albert.
Thank you for having me.
All right, man.
Take care.
See you.